The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to Easy Money New England.
Oh, can somebody help us here?
We can, because we are real estate and mortgage professionals.
Where you go?
It says come in and browse.
That's right. Come on in, listen up and learn.
How long do you intend to browse?
In a short period of time, our panel will teach you some tricks that might make your house buying easier.
You don't ask her how long she intends to browse.
You might not be looking for a mortgage today, but we'll get you ready.
You don't look like browsers.
Are you looking?
No, what do browsers look like?
Yeah, maybe I'm half browse.
On his father's side.
This is Easy Money New England
Let's show the lady we're browse.
with your host, Brian D'Amico.
Hey, look at us, we're browse. One more word out of you and he gets it, all right? Come on.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of our show, Easy Money New England, where every week we bring you money-making opportunities or money-saving ideas, all in the area of real estate, in the real estate industry. Today, the heading of our show is, how to win in today's market. And, we all know that with low inventory, low interest rates, a competitive market, that buyers are having a difficult time winning the bid. So what can buyers do? So we're going to talk with Chris Doherty, the number one selling agent in a low market and one of the top agents in Massachusetts on how to win in today's competitive market. He has recently been featured in the Boston Globe, Boston.com, Boston Herald, Banker and Tradesman, and dozens of other national and local publications and periodicals, and was recently featured on the national cover of Top Agent magazine for his sales strategy and success. So without further ado, welcome to our show, Chris Doherty.
Hey, thanks, Brian. I'm happy to be here. And let me just say I love the show, and I think it's just a great forum for people who are trying to get great ideas on how to, save money, make money, win in a competitive market like this. And I love what you're doing, and I think it's great to get this venue and forum out for real estate and mortgage professionals, and I'm happy to be here.
Thanks. So, Chris, let's dive right in, right? So we all know that it's very competitive in today's world. And, as a number one producer and definitely the low market, what are you seeing out there? Like what should be the strategy? If I'm a buyer, I'm listening to the show right now, I want to buy a piece of real estate. What should be their strategy?
I mean, I think, like right now, as a real estate agent, for me in our office, what we're seeing is, especially with newer people who are coming into the market, is that they really don't have a sense of how competitive it is right now. And they don't understand the emotion that starts to become part of this process, which we try to get them not to engage in. But because there's so much activity in the market and it's so hot, the question is, how do they win? And so what we try to do with new people, not just first-time home buyers, but people that are getting back into the real estate market because either they want to move or they either want to move up or they want to move out of their parents' house or they have an apartment they're renting and they want to get out. The question for them is, what should their expectation be, right? And that's the first thing. It's setting the mindset properly with new buyers. And that is to know that right now we are in a market that is increasing each and every day. Prices keep going up. Inventory is still low. And so that first technique is just mindset, right? Yep. When you go in, you have to understand in a market like this, if lowballing isn't going to work in today's market, right? 3-4 years ago, that was a strategy we're doing. So it's getting that mindset. That's the first thing, Brian, that we've been really trying to get people to just know. Like right now, it's hot. There's going to be multi-bids. Things are likely going to go over the listing price, which is difficult. And if you're not prepared for that already, you're going to have a tough time emotionally in this market when you keep getting turned down.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I just, I published a small book called Real Estate Riches, Take the First Step and Buy Your First Home. And all throughout the book, it's really about talking about, setting up that professional team, right? So you have to get the right agent, right? And the right lender and the right attorney. Once you have that team in place, if these people are all working together, do you also follow that same kind of strategy that, you get professionals in every area?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because it's first that mindset, right? And then when you have the mindset, okay, I'm going to be in a competitive market, how do I win, right? How do I set myself up for success so that I don't get into a situation where I don't have at least every opportunity at my disposal to try to get a successful deal to go through? And that it starts with hiring the right people, right? Yep. You need to be hiring a full-time agent. That's the first thing. When the market increases like this, what you'll see is a lot of people will have a cousin, a brother, a sister, a friend, and they got into the real estate market and they're relatively new and they realize that they're not having a lot of success. And it's like in a market like this that's moving fast, you need to have somebody who does it full time and at a high level to make sure that you have the tips, the strategies, the know-how, and honestly, the relationships to help you navigate a tough market like this. And so what we try to do is exactly what you said, and I loved your book. I thought that was great, and I think it's a great thing. Every first-time home buyer should get it, because that's going to help them with their mindset and acclimate them into this, into this world of buying real estate. But when we bring people on, what we do, Brian, is, they come into us, we get them, we sit them down, we go through a life list with them. So we have them go through and they give us what their wants and their needs are and, what they're trying to achieve. And we pretty much go through everything that they're looking for, so we have a pretty good sense. We get them with a top lender, right? And you want to have a lender, it's the same thing, that's experienced, that understands how to win in this market, who is good at relationships too, that can talk to a listing agent if they're on the buyer side to try to say, hey, look, we have somebody who's very qualified. Not just sending over a pre-approval, right, but going beyond that. Maybe that mortgage lender will send an email. Like I know, you've done this in the past, and there are, the top lenders are doing this. They'll even call the listing agent and say, hey, I just want to talk to you a little bit about the profile about my buyer. They're highly qualified, if they've worked with them in the past. But really doing everything in that relationship side, if you're a buyer, to make sure that you have a team, a real estate agent, a lender, and a lawyer that are all working in sync to make sure that they're making listing agents comfortable when an offer goes in, because that sends the message, right, Brian? You've seen this all the time.
Yeah.
If a listing agent sees that team, they say, okay, these are people who know how to do this, and they're going to get us to the finish line.
Right. So one of the things that we'll do is, say that offer goes in, and you want to make sure that the seller knows that it's you're not going to have a problem getting financing. We'll make that call and say, hey, look, we review their W-2s, we review their pay stubs. We got everything in place. Barring an appraisal issue or barring something that has to do with the property, there'll be no issues moving forward with this loan. And just that little touch, yeah.
Yeah, and if people know you, right, they say, hey, here's somebody who's been doing this for a long time. We know who he is. We know that he gets deals through all the time. So if he says that, it's going to go through. Right. That's hard if you have somebody brand new or inexperienced, right? Because that listing agent is going to be looking and saying, hey, is this person going to be able to get me to the finish line here? Am I dealing with a competent team on the other side?
And if you're a buyer out there, I mean, obviously, if someone's putting their neck on the line, they're not going to want to ruin their reputation if they don't really believe it, right? So someone in the industry 100%. That makes those claims, I mean, they're the ones that have to sleep every night. So they're making sure that loan goes through.
Yeah, they're making sure. And, the thing is that buyers, I think what's hard in this market is, or in this business, is they don't always know the difference, right? And so they try to figure out, like, how do I know if I'm dealing with a good team? But I think the good thing that the internet has done today, you can look up agents. You can go to third-party sites and see how many deals has my agent done, not just total, but in this market, right? How many do they do in the past 12 months? How many in the last 6 months? How many in the last 2 years?
Right.
So you can get a sense of, hey, this is somebody who is moving a lot of real estate. And usually if you have an agent, they're going to tell you that, hey, this is a good mortgage person or not a good mortgage person. And, if you get to the right people, it's going to help you when you get into a competitive situation. And, I mean, Bri, it's people who are going to give you the talk like we are now, right? And that is like, in a market like this, we got to be honest with you. Going 20% below on an offer when there's going to be 10 offers on the property just isn't going to work. Right. And you may want that, you may hope for that, but that's the hard advice in today's market that good agents need to give if you're going to win in a competitive bid situation.
So say, for example, someone's shopping for a home and it's in Lowell, and say it's $300,000 and there's about 10 different offers on the table right around that same price. How do you kind of substantiate yourself to say, hey, look, take my offer as opposed to the other 9?
I mean, it's a great question, right? And it's the same question like in life. It's like, how do I stand out? And so there's a couple of tips that have been working really well for us. And, the overarching theme is that, listen, we're going to make it as easy as possible for you, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, and we're going to minimize every potential roadblock that you might be worried about or encounter down the road. And we want to make you comfortable about that up front. And so what we've been trying to do is minimize our contingencies on the offer so that we still protect the client, but that we're doing things first not to tie them up for a long period of time, right?
Yeah.
So we might tighten up our inspection period. You know, you have the traditional 10 days. In some cases, if people are really hot on the property, I mean, we might do like, hey, we could get an inspection done like day one here, right?
Yeah.
We might do a 1-day inspection or a 3-day inspections. We've been tightening that up. We've been going to our mortgage partners and saying, listen, it's important for you to be part of our team to persuade the other side, not just on our like inspection and other things, but that we've got a great buyer. So we've been having, and you know this, but you know, to let people listening, we've been having our mortgage partners like you go and call the other side and say, hey, listen, this person's very qualified. We feel very comfortable with the process beyond just sending the pre-approval. And the third thing that we've been doing, and it does work, is we've been having our clients send personal letters. And not just a letter that's been put together. We've been having them include photographs. We've been having them say what they love about the house. And so I'm not saying that if you send that letter, you're going to get this house $5,000 or $10,000 off. That's not what it does. But what's happening is in a 10-bid situation, which is very common in today's market, it sets you apart. If you are equal to the other person in price, and then they get the letter, and then they get a feeling that the agent is going above and beyond and getting all the documents in order up front, and they have a lender that's calling, you're starting to be the dominant person in the mind of the listing agent. And what we do is follow up with them. So if we have a day of an offer, you know, like, so let's say offer deadline's today, we place 3 calls as an agency to the list agent. And so, you know, what we've been doing is in the morning, is there any additional information that you need from us? If not, great. Then mid-afternoon, hey, we want to let you know that our client is completely flexible on the terms. So if there's anything that you're uncomfortable with, we'll be willing to the best of our ability, to, and if we can, to adapt to that. And then the third thing is right before the bid, we'll say something nice to them like, hey, we're really hoping that they get this. The clients just wanted to say they understand that it's a difficult situation for the seller. They appreciate what they're going through, but they're here if there's any questions that they have, okay?
Yeah.
And so we've been trying to just how do we stand out in a pack of 10, in a pack of 5, in a pack of 3? How do we get the deal? And it's also price, right, Bri? I mean,
right. So I was watching Chronicle last week, and there was a big blurb, a big segment about escalation clauses. You know, what's an escalation clause?
Yeah, so I mean, in some cases we are using them. And so an escalation clause is where we will go to the seller and say, listen, we will, buyer will agree to go $500 over the top offer that they receive. And in some cases we might put a cap on it, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, so long as it's there. But what we're indicating is, hey, whatever you get, if the house is $300 and you get an offer for $320, we're willing to go to $320, $500. Or we'll go 321. We'll go 1,000 over. And so, the thing that I found about escalation clauses that help is it brings them back to you, right?
Right.
And so you may not always get it, but it gets that seller say, hey, you know what? Before we pull, before we sign the paper with maybe somebody who is the highest, go back to that escalation clause and see what they'll do. And that just gets you back in the game to try to sell, right? If you're a top agent, now you're back on with that listing agent and you're trying to sell your client. Say, yep, we can beat that term. What do they have? What can we do that makes them comfortable? Is there anything they're uncomfortable about? And so we've had success with escalation clauses. That being said, the only risk, Brad, that I have found is sometimes some agents on the listing side, they're not, they're going with that. If you're too low in your escalation clause, if somebody's 20 over, a lot of times they're taking that 20 over. They're not always coming back to us like we hope they would. So it's a little bit of a double edge, And so if I think the escalation clauses are working, let's say it's 300 and you're at 320, and you might have somebody at 321 or 322, they're coming back to us.
Yeah.
But if you're so much lower than the top, they're just discounting that offer like that you weren't that serious,
And what happens
They're not coming back.
And what happens if I'm a buyer, but I need to sell my house before I actually close on their house? How are you structuring that where they feel like you're going to go ahead and sell your house at the same day that you're going to buy a new house?
Yeah, I mean, you get buyers and they want to sell and they want to move on, and the first thing that they do is what? Call their real estate agent. Hey, Chris, take me out. I want to go see 4 places. And then I go, all right, well, where are you going to go? Well, we'll buy a place. We're going to buy this place and then we'll sell our place. You can't do it in this market, right?
Right.
And so you need to be, if you're going to buy a house and you need to sell your house, you can do it. You just need to make sure that you're far enough down the road that somebody's going to play ball with you. So with buyers that are coming to us saying they want to go find a new home, we say, listen, list your home now. You need to list it now, and we need to have a buyer of your own that is under agreement. We need to be past inspection, and we need to be past purchase and sales, right?
Right.
I mean, even appraisals are, getting sellers worried, but we are getting our buyers to market. We're getting them under agreement. So that way, sellers are a lot more comfortable. Think about it. You're selling your home. You're in a hot market. You got 10 people come to your house and say, oh, yeah, this person wants to buy your house. Oh, great offer. The only problem is they have to sell their house. Okay. How's it look? Well, they haven't put it on the market yet. Well, okay, when are they going to do that? Once they know that you're good, they'll get theirs. You're already out of the game before the conversation goes any further. They just say, no, forget about it. I mean, it's going to take too long. So we've been saying to our buyers, and we've had success, let's get your house listed. Let's get you under agreement because you will. The market's strong. And then once we're through your inspection and we're at P&S and we know your deal is pretty solid, then we go buy something with a home sale contingency. And it's been working, and we're having a lot of success. So long as we do the right things on the listing side when we're buying again. Our price is strong. We're doing our letters. We're making sure that our contingencies, we have that home sale, but we're still trying to be amenable on inspection-related items and those types of things to try to win at the end of the day.
Well, Chris, this is great information. And if I'm driving around right now, or I'm a buyer or I want to sell my house, what's the best way to reach you? I mean, obviously they could probably Google you and find you, but what's the best way to reach you if they're interested? Yeah,
there's a bunch of ways. So the first is they can reach out to me at the office. They can call 978-746-0124. They can email me at Chris, C-H-R-I-S, at Doherty, that's D-O-H-E-R-T-Y, properties.com. And I'm on Facebook, too. If you go to Doherty Properties on Facebook, we have a pretty active site there. They can get me on Twitter, Instagram. They can get me anywhere. But call me anytime just to talk, even if you just want to get a sense of like, all right, I'm getting worried. What do I got to do? Or who's the right lender? We can set you up with, people like Brian and his team or other people and get you going so we can get you moving forward in a competitive marketplace. But at the end of the day, Brian, it's about winning, right?
Yeah.
When you go in and you want to bid, you want to win. You don't want to go in and play and spend a bunch of time. So it's like you got to give yourself every tool in the toolbox to try to get it over the finish line.
And not all realtors are created equal. And I think it's very important when you pick your team that you do that research and that, obviously, just talking to you now, this is everything you want in a realtor, right? You know the market. You've been doing this a long time. You do a ton of production. You're doing podcasts. You're giving back. You're building value. That's really the stuff that you're looking for when you're trying to select the right fit, right? For someone that.
I think so. Yeah. I think it's that, and it's people who are committed, and just like you wrote a book on this. You take this seriously, right?
Right.
You're thinking about how do I add value? How do I help people? And, listen, they've done these studies, every couple of years on what's the most stressful thing in life. And buying a home is always 2 or 3. And by the way, dying is 3 and public speaking is 1.
Yeah,
but,
try to replace us with robots, right? Try to replace us with robots, right?
Yeah, exactly. But listen, buying is stressful, right?
Right.
And so at the end of the day, it's like when you get in there, you need to get that mindset right and set that expectation, and then get that team around you to do everything in their power to give you the best advice so you can win at the end of the day. Now, listen, I know your show is saving money too. There's a time and a place for offers that you can get creative with, that you can get undervalued. But in a traditional market like this, where this market continues to rise, I've been advising people, Brian, beat the market, right? Because I have clients who have sat on the fence for 2 or 3 years, literally. And I'll say, put an offer in, go 10 over. No, I'm not going to pay that. I'm going 10 under.
Of
course, they don't
now,
get it, right?
Yeah.
3 years ago, that home they're trying to buy 2 or 3 years ago is now $50,000 to $75,000 more than it was then.
Yeah.
And they say, geez, I should have went 10 over like you told me then. And in a rising market, what's going to happen? The prices are going to keep going up. And so you try to beat the market. When the market turns, at some point it will, right? And nobody knows when. Could be tomorrow, could be in 10 years, could be in 20 years. But when the market goes down, you can then chase lower offers because the market will meet the lower offer. But when the market goes up, you need to meet the rising price. And so you shoot over because in what are we having? And, in our low market and certain, like in our downtown, we have 8% appreciation, 8%.
Right.
I mean, on a $300,000 house, it's $24,000. Why didn't you go 10 over?
Right, exactly.
Right? Because in 12 months, where are you going to be, right?
Right.
And so every day that you wait, you're going to be bidding over just on higher and higher pricing. So we've been pushing our people to just say, look, meet the rising market. It's tough. But the other thing, Brian, I know you've got other stuff, but it's, do this analysis if you're renting. Like, I get this every day. We have a robust rental market, and our company does literally thousands of rentals. But I'll hear from a renter and say, I don't want to buy yet. And I go, okay, why?
Right.
Well, what if the market turns? I said, all right, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's say the market turns tomorrow and it's 300,000. What are you afraid? Where do you think the market's going to drop? Say 10%. You go, okay, 10%. How much is that? 30 grand. All right, let's talk about how much you're going to pay in rent this year. Okay? And so you say, well, I'm paying $2,000 a month on a 2-bedroom. All right, so you're paying $24,000 in rent. You're not getting any of the tax benefits, that go with it. So you're in the same place anyways. If you wait 2 years, and I've had renters wait 2 years, now you're, at 15%. If you wait 3 years, you're at 25%. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
You're just throwing the money away in rent, and they're waiting, and they're waiting, and they're waiting. And you say, what are you waiting for? Well, I want the market to come down. But every day that you do that, you're throwing money out in another venue. So what does it matter?
No, 100%
right?
agree. Yep.
Like, get in the game. Get in the game.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about your city, where you're selling the most, Lowell, right? So Lowell is very interesting because if I'm an investor and I see a lot of people investing in the city of Lowell, cash flow is king, right? I mean, it's all ways to build your cash flow. And can you tell me a little bit about Lowell, like student housing, or is it multifamilies? If I'm an investor looking to invest today, I feel like there's a good return in your city.
100%. I mean, I think that, Lowell is, it's there, right? It's up and coming, but it's there. But what we've said, and we do analysis of this quite a bit, there's a couple of dynamics in the city that are happening that are making Lowell thrive in a pretty rapid pace. The first is the University of Massachusetts, right? Yeah. So the university is growing significantly. And with that growth comes more students, comes more staff, it comes more professors, comes more of all of the services that go with that, shops, restaurants, housing. And so the university alone has doubled its enrollment in the past 5 years. You have seen at least the UMass Lowell has become a full Division I athletic program. And the ratings now have the school at the top 100 in the United States. Wow. And so the program has climbed significantly. And so that's giving opportunities for investors to, have success by getting good returns.
Yeah, I mean, so cash flow, like, for example, I know that, closer to the city of Boston is getting pretty frothy, right? And I can't see, people are buying these properties and, a 3-family for $650,000. And I'm doing the numbers and it just doesn't make sense, right? I mean, how do they make a return on that? Whereas if you look in Lowell, you can actually get a return for your investment.
You're still getting, it's not unusual to get an 8, 9, or 10 cap rate in our market. I mean, you're still seeing a lot of deals and opportunities, right?
Yep.
I mean, most, you go to Boston and I'll see investors. We actually have a lot of Boston investors that have come to Lowell,
yep.
But they started in Boston. And what happened was you'd be like, okay, well, I'm buying and I'm not making any money, but I'm getting the equity in it. And I'd say, come to Lowell. Not only can you get the equity, not only are you likely to have greater growth, right, because of the expansion that we have, right, but you're also going to have an actual return. At the end of the month, you're going to take money and put them in your pocket. And so we have seen pretty significant investor activity. And, most recently, we have seen a huge influx from the Asians, right?
Yep.
In the multifamily asset class, we have seen huge international investment money. Chinese investors have been playing a huge role in the investor market. We've seen, we recently had investors from Italy. I mean, literally all over the world are now coming into what I call like a secondary market, right?
Yep.
We're not big like Boston per se, but, it's a city. It's the 4th largest city in Massachusetts, and we are seeing big investors. And why? Because they're learning, like, hey, we can't get the returns here, but we want to be in the United States. We want stability. We know Massachusetts has a great, robust housing market, but they also believe in urban renewal, right?
Yep.
That a lot of people are moving back to the cities, right? Part of it's the baby boomer generation. You know, they're downsizing. They want walkability. They want like condo living if they're in downtown. They want access to commuter rail stations, all that type of stuff. And so those combination of those factors, university growth, hospital growth, job growth, has made Lowell a hot market for investors. And so I've had, you know, investors, Brian, that have started with us literally zero. And I have one client, he has over 150 units. Yeah. He started not even 10 years ago, right? Amazing. I have another client who's at 25 units. I have clients that are 8 units, 10 units. But think about it. Here's somebody 10 years ago said, hey, I want to get started investing, met with me. We sat down and we marked, and we don't just do Lowell, right? We'll do Greater Lowell, other areas. We won't go into Boston. It's too far for us, but we stay pretty localized, and said, hey, look, you know, you're going to buy in Greater Lowell, multifamilies, and they've grown incredibly successful businesses. They're making great returns on the investment, and you know what? They're real investors. I mean, in a real market, and it's really happening. So that's what's possible.
So if I'm an investor, say I'm an investor in East Boston, and I'm sitting on a lot of equity because I had the property for a long time, but it's not really making much money, but I have equity. I'm just not tapping it, right? So if I was to do a 1031 exchange, sell that 3-family in East Boston, and then use that money to exchange into Lowell, I mean, you could double, triple, quadruple your cash flow just by changing addresses, really, right?
100%. And, you know, depending on your equity position, I mean, on your 1031, you got to be at an equal to or greater value, but you're going to get a lot more diversity as well, right? So your 4-unit in Boston might be an 8-unit or even a 12-unit in Lowell. And so you're going to have opportunities on a diversified portfolio, less risk, right? You don't just have 4 people. So your vacancy rate when you run that, if you lose 1 or 2, you know, as you're doing it, it's not as bad as losing 1 or 2 when you own 4. And then your appreciation is going to be greater long-term just because of where we are in the market as opposed to Boston. And then you're also going to get, you know, the opportunity of, you know, other potential buys that are going to be near that property are going to be plentiful for investors. And you do an investment in Lowell, like, you know, we do them. We'll get, you know, you'll get 4 or 5 offers on an investment. If it's really priced right, you might get, you know, 7 to 10. I had a client who's an investor here. He wanted something in Somerville with like 50 offers. Yep. I mean, it's hard to win when there's 50 people. I mean, even with the strategies, it's hard. I mean, you still do the same things that we talk about, but it's hard, right? Yeah. And then what does that do? It drives the prices up and it squeezes those numbers, and it's hard to get returns. Lowell is a great place for investors. I've seen people just build tremendous wealth, and when you look and you say, how did they do it? How did they do it? They did it in Lowell, right? Yeah. And, you know, there are some people who have just, you know, I think about, you know, somebody that I look up to, Princeton Properties, the guy that founded that, you know Princeton Properties. Yeah. He started in Lowell. That was a Lowell multifamily investor. He now owns over 9,000 units. Wow. Right? And he learned in that market how to grow it, how to do it. He's a huge success. I mean, Princeton Properties is one of the great success stories of an entrepreneur, a real estate entrepreneur. How did he do it? He started in Lowell. Wow. Right? So Lowell multifamily.
So, you know, today, Lowell, what would you say on a 3-family? How much per door is really the, you know, kind of the market for a 3-family in Lowell?
You're going to be anywhere from 100 to 150. So if you're in university territory in relatively good shape, you're going to be in that 150 range per unit. If you're in one of the areas that is still up and coming and being developed, you could be as low as 100 a unit. So let's say on the 100 a unit, if it's a 2-bedroom right now, on the low end, if your quality is subpar, you're going to get 1,300 to 1,400 for that. Yeah. You know, if your quality is really good, you're going to get 18. And so if you just run the numbers, you know, the numbers work, right?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, especially if you have other property and looking at ways to build your cash flow. I mean, everything we talk about is building cash flow. Who cares so much about the value if you're making money every month? That's really, and it's not even
just multis, Brian, right? We have condo buyers. People have been buying condos by the university. We had somebody in our office sold one, you know, put one under agreement yesterday. The condo was on for $100,000 in the downtown. It'll rent for $1,500. Condo fee was $200. Taxes were under $200. After taxes, insurance, condo fees, $1,000 a month, not even. It was like $950. This person's going to get $1,500 a month, and it's going to rent in the first day.
And where are you going to get a condo at that price around the city? Just not going to happen.
Yeah, and making, so if you get somebody that's into it, even if they put, 20% down, they put $20,000 in. If they're making $500 a month, at the end of the year they make $6,000. In 3 years, they get all their money back.
Nothing wrong with that.
They get their $20,000 back.
Right. Well, this is a great show. I mean, I'll tell you, I didn't know we were going to go into the investment world, but I'll tell you, it's really I feel like it definitely excites me, excites our listeners that there's definitely strategies out there to increase your cash flow. I mean, that's really, anybody that's looking to buy a house, they're looking to buy a house, one, because they need a place to live, but secondly, everyone has that little desire to kind of be a real estate landlord and grow, right? So, I mean, I think it's a great first step.
Yeah, I mean, I have buyers. I tell them all that. Like, listen, your goal should be to grow, especially if you buy like a condo in Lowell because it's a great rental market. I'll say to them, your goal is buy here, live here for a while. Then when you're ready to go, we make sure the fundamentals work, right? This is the saving money. So we make sure that we can rent it and we are cash positive. And then what we do with that is we rent it and we make money and they buy the next one. Then they live there for a couple of years. When they get tired of it, they buy the next. I have a young woman. She's bought 5 that way.
Yeah, just keep leveraging. I mean, you can leverage this tricks out there to, build equity quicker and then maybe take a second mortgage to get the next property. I know I've done that in the past, and it works out tremendously. So, yeah, there's always things that we could do to kind of build that net worth, and that's really what we're trying to accomplish when we get somebody that wants to buy their first house.
You got it. Why put the money in rent, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you're not getting the tax benefit, you're not getting the equity, and you're not getting any appreciation long term. It just doesn't exist.
It's true.
And so there's a reason that investors buy because they want that. But it should be the same. Like our buyers should be listening and saying, hey, these people are talking about investments too. It's why people who don't own should be buying.
Well, Chris, with that, I want to thank you for coming on our show. I think it was a great segment, and I look forward to doing some business with you in the future. And thanks again.
I do too. I appreciate it. Continued success. I love the book. I love the show. And keep the momentum. You're doing great.
All right. So if anyone's interested, definitely reach out to Chris Doherty, Doherty Properties out of Lowell. And see you next week.
It's a new day, it's a new way. Call 877-NEW-FED-1. It's a new way.
Hi folks, it's Brian D'Amico, owner of New Fed Mortgage, and I'm really excited to introduce Fast Track Mortgage, our new online system that gets you approved in less than 15 minutes. Whether it's a refinance or a new purchase, just go to newfed.com anytime, day or night, and click on the Fast Track Mortgage button. Fill out the form, and within 15 minutes, we'll approve your loan at the lowest rate possible. Don't waste time dealing with big banks. We're local and here to help you close your loan fast. Just go to newfed.com 24/7 and get approved in less than 15 minutes. Fast Track from New Fed Mortgage. Now that's a new way to get the loan you need fast.
877-NEW-FED-1.
Subject to credit approval, equal housing lender, NMLS number 1881. Call us to the website for details.
877-NEW-FED-1.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.